In this lesson, we'll go through and group the layers in a way that makes sense for the objects and name those groups accordingly. Okay, so if you have your layer panel open from the last couple of lessons, that's great. If you don't, you want to go ahead and open that up now. So I've got my layer 2 and layer 1 here, which is where all of these paths that I've been creating have been stored. So right now, everything has been grouped in such a way that it is just kind of easy to move around. Some of them haven't been grouped all together, but what we're going to need to do is anything that we want animated individually inside of After Effects is going to need to be on its own layer. So this being all grouped together, once imported to After Effects, will not be able to be used in a way that is easy to animate all of these pieces individually. It'll just come in as one layer. So if you're not worried about that getting animated, then you don't need to go through and ungroup some of the things that I'm going to be changing. But if you are going to be animating these, you'll want to definitely do this next step of the process. So the way that these pieces are grouped here, I'm totally fine with. I'm not going to be animating any one of those little single lines. So we'll leave that as it is. That is one piece. That's great. One piece there, one there, and one there. So that's fine. I'm totally happy with that working in the way that that has been set up. Now let's come over here and take a look at the way that this has been grouped. I'm just kind of going through and clicking things that I suspect may be grouped together in a way that won't be conducive. So this is one of those issues. Just this needle has been grouped with this middle part here, and I don't want that because I want the needle to be able to move independently. So I'm going to just hit Control-Shift-G to ungroup those, and now the needle is off on its own. So I'm going to go through here and do this for the rest of my objects. So a quick and easy way to do it is just to select everything and hit Control-Shift-G, and then kind of just click through here, see if I can select some of those individual pieces. And if I'm able to, then that probably means there's no group. So we'll hit Control-Shift-G for this one. For this one as well, we'll hit Control-Shift-G. Now I do want those two little pieces to be grouped together, and it looks like they already were, so that's perfect. That is great. We'll be changing this once that's animated, but I'll go ahead and hit Control-Shift-G for this one as well. So mostly I just want that to be its own piece, and then maybe if some of these will be animated later on. Looks like they're still kind of in a subgroup, so I'll go ahead and ungroup those, Control-Shift-G, just to ungroup. And so whatever level you want those to be able to be individually animated at, if you want one piece maybe to turn one way, then you need to have them grouped in such a way that that's possible. So it looks like these have only been grouped once. So what I'm going to do is zoom out here and just select everything, then come back inside with Shift and deselect all of these pieces, and then I'm going to add back in those middle parts, and we'll just leave the hands to be individually animated. So I'll go ahead and hit Control-G to regroup those, and so now the handles are on their own, but everything else has been grouped together. And for this piece, it looks like nothing really has been grouped, so that's perfect. We'll go ahead and leave that one as it is. That's on its own. This has been grouped. I'm going to ungroup that, Control-Shift-G to ungroup. We'll do that one more time. So there's a lot of subgroups in here that need to be released. So that looks like that's going to give us some flexibility for animation. For this, I want those to be on their own layers, so that's perfect. This as well, I need all of those paths kind of to themselves. Now these smaller pieces aren't going to be really visible that they are animating individually, so I'm going to leave these grouped together, make sure that they are grouped, because we'll just probably do some kind of a rotation on that and not individually animate each one of those layers. These are going to be animated separately, so we'll go ahead and ungroup those just so we have that like that should be. And also this piece here is going to need those numbers animated separately. So what I'm going to do is come out here and we'll just make a duplicate of this. So Alt drag this over here and we'll ungroup it. And I just want to isolate the numbers. So looks like for this piece we have that clipping mask. So I'm just going to right click, release clipping mask, and we'll just delete that circle and all these other pieces. And then we'll just leave these numbers kind of over here down in the corner so that once that gets animated, we can have those ready made, and we'll be able to just kind of touch this up here. If you want to, you can take the clipping mask out of this piece. It just depends on how you want that to work, but the animators will just be able to reuse those numbers and animate that accordingly. So once you have everything separated that you want to be able to animate individually, we need to go through here and start naming things. Now this is where it gets kind of tricky, and another problem that you have is that After Effects is only going to recognize this layer as a single layer. So we need to run a script on our project so that all of these individual paths and groups that we've made will be on their own layer. So that script is going to be located in your project files, and to run it, I just need to select everything that I want to be on its own layer. So now that we've ungrouped everything, I'm just going to select all my pieces, and then we'll come up here to File, go to Scripts, Other Script, and then we're going to navigate in our window to the proper place where your project files are. So I just have that for you right here. We're just inside of the project files in the research folder. So we'll go inside of here, or in the reference files, excuse me. And here's the script just right there. It's going to be the only one that is a script, so that's the only one that shows up. So just go ahead and select that and hit open, and that'll automatically just run that for you. And it saves you so much time for not having to go through and drag each piece to a new layer. So it looks a little bit crazy, but this is how it has to be set up to be animated inside of After Effects. So now what I'm going to do is just kind of really quickly start going through the process of showing you kind of how I want to name some of these things. So some pieces are not going to be things that we'll be worried about naming, and we still also have quite a few things left on layer 2. And that's because we have all of these pieces over here that we did not set up to be on their own layers. So if I just kind of come in here to layer 2 and select that whole target, you can see that's all of those pieces there. And it looks like we've also got a little bit of something else over here as well. So I'll go ahead and delete this little extra piece, and this is something that we want on its own layer. So I'll just go ahead and create one new layer for that, and we'll drag that out of layer 2 and bring that onto its own new layer. And then we can just go ahead and turn off layer 2 for now, because that's all those pieces we're not going to be using. And just as you can see, just that one little piece, taking that out of layer 2 and putting it onto its own layer, you can imagine how time consuming that would be. I mean, that was layer 148. So we've got literally hundreds of layers and we would have had to do that over and over and over. And there's not really an easy way to do that without running the script. So as you can see, it's a little bit time consuming, but I'm just going to come in here and start renaming things. So that's going to be my numbers. This piece right here will be my apps. And you may want to come up with some kind of naming convention. So this is going to be fan. So maybe we'll put fan at the beginning of this, and then we can put outer numbers. And if you don't want to go through and rename all of these layers, you don't absolutely have to, but it definitely makes it easier once this is imported to After Effects if you rename it here. It's a little bit more difficult to rename it once you're inside of After Effects, just a few more clicks. So it just depends. If you're not going to animate it, you don't have to name all of these descriptively if you don't want to. So I would call this fan double stroke, something like that, and I'm just trying to get as descriptive as I can. Fan inner numbers, and so on and so forth. So it takes a little bit of time, of course, but you won't be disappointed if you do start animating this and you need to find something specific. So I can name this one fan needle, and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to show you how to rename all of those 148 times. There's so many layers there to go through, but it really is helpful to be as descriptive as you can and just go through and rename those once you've put them all on their individual main layers that After Effects will be able to use, recognize, and import for animation. So in this lesson, we grouped and named our layers in a way that will best interface with the animators when we're ready to hand off the project to the next step. And I just want to thank you for sticking around and watching the whole entire course. And if you're interested in learning how to animate this, you'll be able to watch the second part of this course in animating futuristic menus in After Effects.